Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and I am joined by a friend of the pod and HWA academic librarian, Jocelyn Codner, to talk about
Hello.
Frankenstein retellings and horror.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. It's having such a moment right now. And
It is.
I have to just tell everyone it is my fault that we didn't record this earlier and hit the zeitgeist at its zenith. I was dragging my feet on reading the appropriate text, but also the zeitgeist hasn't waned. Like, people are still talking about Frankenstein right now. It just had such a huge moment at the beginning of this year. We had some pretty high profile movies come out and people were just talking about Frankenstein again. And I was all nervous. I was like, "Oh no, we're going to miss it." But I don't think we have.
No, and I think with Lisa Frankenstein hitting streaming, it's now open
Mhm.
and Poor Things on streaming
Yes.
now, it's hit a wider audience even than when
Mhm.
it was just in theaters. And yeah, it's because you checked out like a giant stack of books that you sent me.
I
And
did.
so I knew not to expect that we were gonna like record
Yeah.
and
I dug in kind of deep.
you know what? We love that though, because
Yes.
we record and we have so many book recommendations
Yes.
because both of us read a ton for
We
this.
did. We did a pretty broad survey, so
Mhm.
I'm excited about it.
One thing I think is interesting about the Frankenstein story is that it's one of those classic novels where, like, it's not even just about the story. There's so much lore even about the creation
Yes.
of the story itself
Yes.
and the night that it was written.
Mhm. Yeah, and it has kind of spawned two different, I don't know, approaches to discussing Frankenstein or reimagining it, and we'll probably talk more about this as we get into the actual media that we consumed, but you have media that has been inspired by the book itself, and then you have media that's been inspired by the creation of the book. You've got
Yeah.
stuff that is more in tribute to Mary Shelley herself and that group of people and how all of that came to be. And I think both are very beloved still today.
I mean, I watched the movie Gothic on Tubi, which is a movie just about that night,
Ooh.
about the contest. It's not like an accurate like historical piece. It is surreal.
Mhm. Mhm. Well,
Natasha
the
Richardson is Mary Shelley.
oh, I love Natasha
I don't know,
Richardson.
R.I.P.
I know. For so long ago, but still it hurts.
It does. She was
Um,
our mom. I don't know. I watched
yes,
Parent
right?
Trap. Like, she's like my Princess Di.
Yes, absolutely, and I think she was in the live action 101 Dalmatians, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, RIP. But yes, actually, I think I'll have to watch it. I did not get to watch that, and it sounds amazing, but that makes a lot of sense that it would be surreal. That is the
Mhm.
way that that lore has been passed down, is as this surreal thing. It is like the foundations of a lot of little goth girls everywhere. Mary Shelley is the
She is
queen
like
supreme.
our patron saint of goth girls. I know
Yes.
we all talk about that story about her like losing her virginity on
Yes.
her mom's gravestone.
Right,
Like,
exactly. It's so incredible. Like,
her
she's just
mom wrote the
outstanding.
Vindications of the Rights of Women. Like,
And it's
icon.
honestly, that's the thing, it's this combination of fierce, uh, women's rights, women's freedoms, women's, expression mixed with fierce femininity and, like, women's choice. Like, Mary Shelley and her mother are just such wonderful examples of women being like, "Well, yeah, we are women and we're going to be women and we're going to have our power and we're going to do what we want. And we're also going to be fully in our emotions, fully in our intellectual thinking, fully in our freedoms and our choices." And I mean, as fully as one can be, they really pushed a lot of boundaries for the time, but they still came up against boundaries that we today can push through and don't have to worry about. But they're just amazing. What a duo. Iconic duo for sure. Like, ah, every woman, every person should be in awe of them.
Speaking of women's rights, I kind of wanted to talk about why we think it's having such a moment right now,
Yes.
because I feel like that kind of goes into that a little bit.
I love your take on this. I was reading your notes. Please get into it. I want to talk about it.
There was an article that quoted Lisa Kroger, wrote a few like nonfiction horror books, including Monster She Wrote, and she hosts the Monster She Wrote podcast. But she was quoted as saying, I think Frankenstein is a novel about grabbing power that wasn't yours to have and what happens when you do that. And then the people who are experiencing that kind of disempowerment, what they're going to do in order to grab it back, which I
Hmm.
will have more to say as I get into
Yeah.
my picks, because one of
Hmm.
them is a story about like a character you would not expect having this
Mm,
narrative in a retelling.
interesting.
Um, and she also kind of goes to say that this type of stuff is popping out because of the current rightward political shift we are feeling, and that the last time we had Frankenstein cinema was the Reagan Bush era with Reanimator, Weird Science, and I mean, Edward Scissorhands was post Reagan
Hmm.
Bush, but you know. Hey, Stephanie from the future. Just popping in here to say I fully thought Edward Scissorhands came out in the mid 90s. Actually, it came out 1990, which would place it under the George H.W. Bush administration. And she's quoted saying, I just know women fear that rights are being taken away and that the
Hmm.
world is shrinking and their power is shrinking. And what we're going to see is more of that particular type of character who's like, okay, I need to process the trauma that the world has given me. And I'm going to do that by fashioning my own path forward.
Yes, I love this. I saw this reflected time and time again in the books that I read for this episode. A lot of it focused on marginalized characters, marginalized populations trying to craft a reality for themselves that was healthy, happy, safe in a world that wanted them gone. And they were really grappling, and same with the original Frankenstein. They're really grappling with why they existed as they did in the first place. Why were they brought here? What is the meaning of life? The original text, the original Frankenstein is so philosophical, which is why I think a lot of people struggle when they read it. Like, I don't know of a horror property that is more disparate in its original form versus its retellings that have really sunk into the media and to our collective consciousness. What we know of Frankenstein when we just watch the movies and watch the retellings or read the retellings is so different from the actual book. There's so many things that
I
people
think it's creators Frankenstein their own
Yes.
retellings.
Yes, absolutely, which is so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, but the original text is very philosophical. It's very much about the hubris of man. It's very much about finding meaning in a brutal world and coming to terms with what it will take to be happy and satisfied. And is that possible, kind of thing. And there's just so much because I think it's rooted in philosophy. It will never stop being relevant to us. And I just love what Lisa Kroger said here about this comparison of trying to find power and find, um, your own, try and take your power back or try to preserve power. And then also in the negative, people trying to take power that doesn't belong to them, the overreaching, the hubris again. Um, I think it's really, really relevant. And the way that we operate as humans, that's how we operate. That unfortunately is a brutal reality of humanity. We take power. We delight in conquest. We delight in subjugation. Like, unfortunately, it's a thing we've gotten better at as the centuries have passed. Us being societies, us actually having these philosophical thoughts and thinking deeper. But it is still inside of us. And obviously, we are still struggling with it today. We can point to multiple conflicts right now that are exactly this. So I just like think that is, and I didn't think of that before. So when I saw that in your notes, I was like, damn, so many things are clicking into place here. And it's on a grand scale. And I think it's also on a smaller scale. This is still kind of a bigger scale, but I saw this a lot in the retellings that I read, taking form in the tech industry, where
Oh yeah.
people are very much creating things just because they can, not thinking about whether they should, right?
I'm
That is
thinking about
such
AI.
right. Oh Lord, am I ever? But I think about all of this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a librarian. I'm a bit of a stereotypical librarian. I am a bit of a luddite. I personally subscribe to the ideas that like we don't need all of the technology that we have, and a lot of the technology we have has its appropriate lanes, and they should stay there. Like mostly in the medical industry, I think a lot of this advanced technology is extremely relevant and useful, which again, a lot of these books that I read have a lot to do with the medical industry. But then they leak out of their designated lanes and they start getting applied to things that I personally don't think they should ever be applied to. So, I'm not fully anti-technology, obviously. I work with a lot of technology in my job, but I don't think it's smart just to create things just because you can, or just to prove a point, or just to be a god, to
Yeah.
be a Victor Frankenstein. And he learned his lesson, boy did he. And that's what this whole book is about. And I wish some of our current Victor Frankensteins would maybe reread this book and take something from it. But I really like this idea of, entering into a more restrictive climate. People are being more oppressed, and we are really trying to search for our our autonomy,
Yeah.
our ability to craft our own lives and find our own satisfaction in the world. And I think that's a really interesting read of Frankenstein.
Brian McCauley also did a radio interview talking about Frankenstein retellings, and he talked about it from he did mention the autonomy and kind of the gender
Mm.
thing, but also from a
Hmm.
point of like empathy and finding
Oh,
empathy
yes.
with this creation as it like
Yes.
goes away from its creator and is trying to find its own place in the world, and talking about how like every time he revisits it now, he's a lot less empathetic with, or he resonates a lot less with Victor
Mm.
Frankenstein,
Hmm. Oh,
as he would.
absolutely. Yeah. No, what an idiot. Also, though, he's so young. I think a lot of people forget, like, we have that image of him as this older mad scientist, but
A college student.
he's a college student. He's like 20 years old. He's fucking around. Like, I was a nightmare at 20. Like, if I had the ability to create something as powerful and intense as the monster when I was 20, like the world would be very upset with me. It's not a time to be having that amount of power. But also, as I was rereading Frankenstein, I did write a note down where I was like, is this a coming of age story both for Victor Frankenstein and the
Yeah.
monster? They're both trying to figure out their place in the world. They're both trying to make their mark, or find their
Mhm.
family, or their home, their place where they belong, and they're both destructive in that process, which I thought that was so
That
interesting.
is interesting.
Yeah. I have to think more about that because honestly, I just like jotted that note down, and then but now I'm kind of taken by it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of interesting conversation about Frankenstein. Joshua Hall was just on Talking Scared, talking to Neil recently about his book Mouth, and they got into monsters, and he was talking about how Frankenstein was like his big one that he really loves. And he said that basically, like, there's something so beautiful about the story, and it's something we can revisit over and over again, and there's just like no getting tired of Frankenstein. And I absolutely agree with him, and we've seen that. I mean, it's been over 200 years and it's still popular
Mhm.
as ever.
Especially in recent media. Should we
Mhm.
talk about some movies?
Oh, yes.
Starting with a recent favorite. We're about to talk Lisa Frankenstein.
Oh, yes. Yes. I loved Lisa Frankenstein. I cried.
I
I
did too.
laughed. I love Diablo Cody. Like, I
Mhm.
was a very early Jennifer's Body fan. Like, I immediately loved that movie. It spoke to me. It was the kind of movie I wanted to write. I wanted to create stuff like that. And I was actually really surprised when there was backlash to it. I was like, guys, this is a perfect film. Why is everyone mad about this?
You were ahead
Um,
of the curve, ahead of the culture.
I was. I'm a perfect barometer of taste. But now, it has gotten recognition as a cult classic, and I think Lisa Frankenstein just falls right in with that. And um, I loved the aesthetic. I loved just the weirdness of it. And this
Yeah.
is this is a piece that is more in homage to Mary Shelley, I think, to that
Really?
gothic. Yeah, I mean it's both, right? But it's got that gothic weird girl
I mean, she
kind
fell in
of.
love at a
Mhm.
cemetery.
Yes, exactly, and had some weird weird sexual experiences. Um, But yeah, I mean, I just everything about it delights me. It really reminded me of Heathers, which is another favorite of mine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Heather's and Edward Scissorhands, but,
Yes.
like, it was
Oh,
a good
yes. Oh my god.
mashup of the 2.
Some
My
Winona classics.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, another goth girl queen.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, I do have a little like another thing I just want as the barometer of perfect taste. I want to put this out there for everyone to get ready because Lisa and Lisa Frankenstein had that glorious long permed hair, right? And she's flicking it around everywhere and it's looking fabulous and unhinged. Stephanie and I just saw Chapel Rowan live in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
She had the same hair. So, everybody, get ready, go get your perms, get your extensions, get that long flowing mermaid permed hair. It's coming back. It's coming back.
You gotta
I'm
be
I'm
ahead
ready
of the
for it.
curve.
Mhm. Mhm. Talk to your stylists.
I can't do this, Jocelyn.
You can't commit. You can't do the
Can't commit.
perm. Oh.
My mom had a perm, so I know my hair, like, is probably capable of it, but I don't know.
The only way to find out is to try.
I feel like there's gotta be other ways. There was so much I loved about Lisa Frankenstein, but yeah, her relationship with the creature and how as the movie goes on and every time he goes in the tanning bed, he becomes, like, a little more human.
Oh, I know. Oh my god, that is so funny, especially because tanning beds probably will kill most of my generation. Like, millennials, we loved a tanning bed in our early 20s, late teens. Man, did I spend some time in a tanning bed. So, yeah, interesting choice. We're all gonna die of melanoma, but he'll survive. He'll look gorgeous.
There was also Poor Things that came out
Mhm.
last year with Emma Stone, which is I didn't know it was based on a novel.
I didn't either until, like, well after I think after she won her Oscar for it, people were like, "Oh, the book." I'm like, "Oh, really?" I had no idea.
Well, my TikTok has been absolutely all over the place with discourse around this film
I
and like
yes.
how to take it and then people bringing up like well this happened in the book and this is that. So
Mhm. Mhm.
it has just
Yeah.
been
I've been seeing some of that, like, on threads. Honestly, we won't really get into the discourse, but I loved
I
Poor
did
Things.
too.
I thought that it was, unique. It was a very unapologetic female experience on the screen. And I think that when people feel uncomfortable with that, in my opinion, it's because they are uncomfortable with the real female experience that clearly laid out. And I know people are having conversations about pedophilia and stuff around that movie. I do not think that holds much water. I think it's weird. Like the movie is
It
weird.
has weird logic. You are not
Yeah,
supposed to be bringing anyway.
right. The whole thing is weird. It's a surreal
Mhm,
universe.
mhm.
It's not really kind of supposed to reflect our own, and it really is though I thought a very accurate depiction of a sexual awakening for a woman. It's not always pretty. It's not always like this lovely romantic thing with roses. Like it's a sexual awakening, man. Like it's gonna have some weird stuff going on. So, but yeah, I thought it was a refreshing film in my opinion. In a world where we've got a lot of the same kind of thing coming out, the uniqueness of Poor Things I thought was very refreshing.
It was, and probably like a weird tangent here, but like the discourse around this kind of started to come up around the same time as we were talking about the Fundy baby voice after
Mhm.
the Katie Britt State of the Union response.
Aha, yeah.
um, and as someone who was raised Fundy and read books like Fascinating Womanhood, bleh, which encouraged speaking in a baby voice
Wow.
because men are attracted to these are heavy air quotes from this like god awful book. Um, Men are attracted to like purity and naivety and
Oh,
like wide eyed whatever. So kind of
yikes.
seeing this in Poor Things being like she was that and men were
Mhm.
attracted to that, but she was so much that they could not
Yeah.
control her.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
I liked that.
Yes, I agree. She was so strong in what she wanted to experience. And even if that might not have been the best thing for her,
Mhm.
she wanted to experience it. And she wanted to experience it even if it was bad, because
Yeah.
that's part of life. That's part of living. Like, you are calibrating your own reality. You're crafting your life, your whole space that you exist in, and you need to have experiences to do that. I just loved that.
I did. Did you end up watching May or no?
No, I didn't. I'm going to, though. I haven't. Okay, yeah, a confession. Every time I come on the podcast, I have to confess to like a movie I haven't watched that's a sin. May is one of those. I haven't seen May, and I really, really want to. I will. I will, I
Okay.
swear.
The Frankenstein element in that is not the main element, and it is not like a straightforward Frankenstein retelling. It is like there's like a snippet of it in there, so I would not call it like a one-to-one. I personally really like it,
Hmm.
and we can talk about it when you've seen
Yeah.
it.
We'll have a coffee and we'll chat.
But for this episode, I watched Frankenhooker.
I also
Or
haven't seen this one. This sounds wild.
it was. This was on Tubi. This is from God, I don't know if it was like I think it's the late 80s. But you're following like a mad young scientist type who loses his fiance in a tragic lawnmower accident.
Oh my. Oh God.
Yeah, that's how the film opens.
Yikes.
And so he I think like saves a part of her and wants to essentially like bring her back, and he hires a lot of sex workers and is like using their services kind of all at once and just kind of like measuring them and like taking
Okay.
notes, and he has all these like weapons and you're like, "Oh my god, he's going to like dismember these women."
Right.
But then like they get blown up instead. It is wild. Um they take some, they take some drugs they were not supposed to take that he had
Mm.
brought, and they just all start, like, exploding.
Oh my God.
So then their parts are just everywhere, and
And he's
he,
like,
like,
"Well, might
I
as well use
guess, like,
these."
this isn't plan A, but
Can't
plan
let
B still
anything
gave
go to
me, I
waste.
guess, what I needed
Right.
in a roundabout way.
Mhm.
And so he does, like, sew all these parts together and, like, bring this Frankenhooker
Oh God.
to life. And it really is a story about like autonomy. And it's
Oh.
like absolutely bonkers and campy, but it's a fun time.
All right. Okay, good. I will check that one out too, because it does sound wild. It sounds like a good time.
It is.
Do you wanna talk
Do I want to talk? Oh, about the
Yeah. You wanna talk about do you wanna talk about the elephant in the room before I talk about my movies?
elephant in the room being Christian Bale's like
Whew.
photos that were released as like the new Frankenstein for like the Maggie Gyllenhaal
Oh my
movie.
god.
Why is he hot?
Oh my god, he's so hot. I can't, it's bad. First of all, okay, I think for a lot of us, like, Christian Bale was an early crush.
Yes. He was Laurie days. Laurie in Little
Yes.
Women
Yes.
crushed. I have liked him since, like, then.
Yeah. Right? Like Newsies
And
era.
then I did not watch Newsies, but oh my god, when okay, Batman Begins came out when I
Mm.
was in high school,
Mhm.
like, my
Mhm.
freshman year,
Yeah,
and that was a turning
formative.
point.
Formative,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, I had such a huge crush, so this is real weird, but Kenneth Branagh's Henry V,
Okay.
he has a very small role in that as, like, kind of a youngish kid, like, he wasn't Empire of the Sun young,
Yep.
he was, like, a teenager, and I think it was probably before, like, Little Women and maybe even before Newsies, because his role wasn't huge, but I was, like, so obsessed with him in that movie. I don't know, he's, like, covered in dirt on the battlefields of, Shakespearean shit. And I'm just like, oh, Christian Bale. And I've just been like in love with him ever since. And I can't handle those pictures. When he posted those pictures, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This movie is going to mess me up. Like, he is so hot with that, like the scar and I don't know, a large jaw. I don't even know what's going on. It's
I just wanna know, like, what is their angle? Because he's
right.
obviously very much, like, posing in a
Hmm.
sultry
Right.
way and,
His
like
hair is
yeah,
like
like
all kind of greasy and slit. He's got it flipped
and
to
I
show
know
the
a lot of people
scar.
were commenting on the Jared Leto-esque
Mhm.
tattoo on.
Oh, no, you're right. Oh god.
But I'm like, he is stitched together from parts of people, so it would make
Yeah,
sense that some of those pieces would be tattooed.
that's
But
true. Yeah.
I
No,
don't know.
I'm
I'm curious to see just like what the direction is. Because
absolutely.
right now my question
Absolutely.
is, why is he hot?
Why is he hot? And what's going on? Yeah, no, I'm very there for it. I don't even care anymore. Like, I'll just be there.
Like, plot be damned. I will
Yeah.
be there for hot Frankenstein.
But I love Maggie Gyllenhaal too, so it's like anything's gonna be fine, I think. Like, I'll have a good time in that movie no matter what.
Yeah.
So, bring it on. I'm excited. But speaking of The Bride, so I took this opportunity to go back and watch the original, the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, which I had never seen. I'd not seen the actual, like, Frankenstein with Boris Karloff in it. Didn't really like it. Didn't really grab me. It's pretty boring. I mean, it's kind of early-ish cinema days, so whatever. But then I, of course, followed it up with Bride of Frankenstein, which is a banger, absolute incredible movie, like night and day from the first one. And I hadn't seen all of that one. I had seen bits and pieces of it on TV, as you're flipping around. But I absolutely had a blast with Bride of Frankenstein. I thought that was incredible. And then I watched Victor Frankenstein, starring James McAvoy and Daniel Radcliffe. This movie, I think it came out in like 2015. It definitely like slipped through the cracks. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say
This is
like,
the
oh,
first time I've heard of it.
yeah, Andrew Scott's in it too, by the way.
What? Okay.
Yes. So for all of us who are, big Andrew Scott stans, like this is a fun one. Um, this movie definitely didn't make big waves. It's not a great movie, but it is fun as hell. It is so fun. James McAvoy is like unhinged in it as Victor Frankenstein, which is great. And Daniel Radcliffe plays a very interesting character. And they take a lot of liberties. There's really not much that's the same. Hardly at all. But it has like kind of it feels like the Robert Downey Jr. kind of Sherlock movies. Like there's a little bit of that energy going
Yeah.
on. And the time period, it's just like, I don't know. It's fun. It's interesting. It also kind of feels a little Neil Gaiman-esque.
Interesting.
So yeah, I had a good time watching it, but not a great work of cinema. It's not, I wouldn't put it up with Poor Things in terms of like, cinema execution. And then, okay, bringing it back to Kenneth Branagh, I watched his 1994 Frankenstein adaptation, which I believe is like in some places titled as like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, kind of like the Bram Stoker's Dracula sort of.
Yeah.
Wow. That movie also not great. um, and extremely surreal. And Kenneth Branagh, again, unhinged, looking really good though.
Okay.
Like, he's ripped, his hair is long, he's, in turmoil for 90% of the film. It's interesting. It was a lot of interesting choices. I'd say it follows the book more closely, obviously, than any of the other things that I watched. But they made some really weird choices again, and it's fine. But the set pieces they're very big. They're very like outlandish, very surreal. Like truly like a surrealist painting is kind of like how it felt to me. And so that's an interesting one. I feel like if you are looking for a good time out of any of these picks, that all the movies that I watched, I would go with the 2015 Victor Frankenstein and then also Bride of Frankenstein, like the Boris Karloff, Elsa Lanchester one. You don't necessarily need to hit up Kenneth Branagh's work this time. Other times he's necessary. This time I feel like you might be able to pass.
Good to know. I will make note of that. Okay. Are we ready to talk about some books?
Yes.
I'll start with The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. This is a young adult novel I read several years ago, like in the early days of the podcast. And I remember it being like one of my year end favorites at the end of the year. So it's a book that's always really stuck with me. But this is a retelling of the events of Frankenstein, but through the point of view of Victor's fiance, like Elizabeth Frankenstein. And it was so interesting because obviously we're in her point of view. She's a fully fleshed out character, but I really liked the way it approached her agency and what she
Mm,
had to do. Like here she is. She was a poor child that was like taken in by this like wealthy family to be Victor's companion. And so her essentially like livelihood was tied to the whims of this very mercurial boy who then grew into a mercurial man, and just
Yeah.
um what she had to do for the sake of survival.
Mm,
And it is
mhm,
interesting in these stories, as you like know the Frankenstein story, like what is happening, like when she
mhm.
goes to like visit him and he's
Oh,
looking
yeah.
frazzled.
Yep.
And you're like, well, we know what went on. Um and I won't spoil anything in the direction that it goes. It goes but it's just a very good time in a book that's really stuck with me in that it did something very different with the source material while being like a retelling. Like you are kind of following the events of the book as it goes on, but
Mhm. Oh,
in
that
an
is so
interesting
interesting.
POV.
Yeah, because especially in the original text, she's really depicted as a bit of an angel,
Mhm.
and just kind of like doing whatever everybody says for her to do. And I think that's a really important point about her agency and the idea of her doing what she needs to do to survive.
Yeah, she like essentially has to be portrayed this
Yep.
way
Yep.
to survive.
Mhm. And we only get that perspective in the original book, right? We don't get her perspective at all.
I would say this was a room temperature book. I mean, as I remember it, it has been several years.
Yeah.
Um, but I really liked it. And I think it's what kind of got me on the Kirsten White train where I'm like,
Mm,
I'll read what you
mhm.
put out.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, I
she's
feel like
prolific. She puts
she
out a
is.
lot.
And I remember that book being pretty big, like, a lot of people
Mhm.
talked about it when it came out. I still haven't read it, it's eternally on my TBR. It'll get off eventually, but I am excited to get to it one day.
That is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White.
Alright, my first pick, I still find it so funny that I decided to read this book, but I picked up Frankenstein: Prodigal Son by Dean Koontz and Kevin J. Anderson.
Okay.
I know, Dean, here we are. We've brought Dean out. So this book, it came out in 2005, but it feels like it was written in the 90s, which actually makes sense because it was originally developed as a TV script. And as someone who went to school for screenwriting and wanted to write for television, I saw that in the book. I could feel the lasting like framework of a television script like in the book, and I actually really liked that. I thought that it worked well for this book. The plot was very propulsive. There was a lot of just action happening. We didn't linger too long on things. The characters were very like well crafted. There was economy, and it was fun. I'm gonna At the top of this, I'm going to say that ultimately, when I was done reading this book, it was fun. That being said, I had some problems with it, and I do want to put like a trigger warning in my discussion of it for ableism because we're going to get to that. So just, warning folks. But this is an interesting take on Frankenstein. So in Prodigal Son, Victor Frankenstein is a real human. What he did in the book Frankenstein, he actually did. And Mary Shelley wrote that book. Like the book also exists in this universe because,
Interesting.
yes, I thought this was really fun because she like heard about Frankenstein or knew Frankenstein or something like that. So he grumbles. Frankenstein is in this book and he grumbles about Mary Shelley's book like multiple times where he's like, she didn't know what she was talking about and blah, blah, blah. And so in this book, Frankenstein has changed his name to something very arrogant from mythology that now I'm forgetting exactly what it is. But he is a mad doctor. He is a mad scientist. And he has figured out the secret mostly, not necessarily to immortality, but to extended life. So he's multiple hundreds of years old at this point. And he is working to create this kind of like new race of biologically engineered humans. That ultimately you get the idea his main goal is world domination. So there's like huge Nazi parallels here. It is even kind of like brought up in the way that like Victor Frankenstein was kind of hoping the Nazis would do better or and he was like, oh, all these he's witnessing all of these different moments throughout history and he's like none of them could do what I want to do. It's like all of this really weird world domination shit. And there's a lot about eugenics in this book because that is Victor Frankenstein's whole thing. is eugenics. He is a sadist. He is an all around reprehensible human being. He's a great villain in this. So our other cast of characters, we've got detectives Carson O'Connor and Michael Madsen in the New Orleans Police Department. This takes place in New Orleans, which is a lovely setting for all of this chaos.
Yeah.
And they're investigating serial killers, and through that work, they're starting to encroach on the diabolical Dr. Frankenstein's schemes. And then we've got the monster. So the monster, of course, is real here, and he's still living. And he comes out of his isolation because he has to put a stop to Victor Frankenstein, of course. He is the moral good. And in this book, he is his name is Deucalion, which is the son of Prometheus. So we've got that kind of like thread there. But by the end of this book, we've got this like ragtag group of heroes of like the detective and the monster, and they're like teamed up together to take down Victor
Like
Frankenstein.
a buddy cop movie?
Yeah, it's amazing. So, like, the weirdness of it, like, I don't know, there's just a lot of juicy parts of this book that make it very, very commercial, very entertaining. That's Dean Koontz, right?
Yeah.
But this is a pretty brutal book. Like, there is a lot of violence. There's a lot of sexual violence, lots of violence towards women, assault, and there is like some stuff that's really, it's outdated. Let's put it that way. All of that, it's part of the book. It's part of the villain. It's part of like what's going on, the evilness of it all. So here's where we get into the conversation of ableism. The thing that I was really kind of struggling with was that there's like weird iffy messaging about autism spectrum disorder, folks with autism spectrum disorder. Um it hits on like two stereotypical things that people will talk about with ASD, where there's a mention of like finding a cure for ASD. Like one of the detectives, Carson O'Connor, her brother has ASD and she is his caregiver. And there's like a period of time where she's like, oh, it'd be great if there was a cure. And like, maybe that's just you chalk that up to she's a caregiver. That can be exhausting sometimes. Sometimes you have those thoughts of like, I wish my life wasn't so difficult. But, that's a harmful sentiment to think like these
Yeah.
people aren't already whole as they are. But then also Victor Frankenstein's scheme includes autism, and he's trying to crack it and use it in his engineering of his like new race of humans to make them either like very more docile or easy to control, or like super specialized in a skill. And he wants to like find the secrets of autism and use it as a superpower, which is also a very harmful stereotype that gets put in media too often with
Yeah.
folks with ASD. So that I was like getting really annoyed with that. But then by the end of the book, our crew of heroes, they kind of have this moment where they're like, no, we need to protect humans as they are. We need to
Mhm.
protect people with ASD as they are. Like even Carson is like having this like thought process of like my brother is whole as he is, and protect like things that we might perceive as imperfections, because that is what makes humanity. And it's kind of like that discussion. Actually, I think back to Joshua Hall's discussion with Neil, where they were talking about how like Neil said something about monstrosity is like this hero, the idea of it, us using it in horror kind of I don't know, protects the idea that imperfections are good and imperfections are something to be valued, or just like people who aren't conforming to like what we perceive as the norm. That's positive. And the idea of using monsters in horror kind of celebrates that. So this book, it's it's a Dean Koontz book that came out in 2005, guys. What do you want me to tell you? But I think it'd be good for people who like crime thrillers, who are looking to get into horror. It's pretty graphic, so it might be a good transition book for people who kind of want to get a little nastier. And if you like The Wire, you might like this. There's a lot of that
Interesting.
kind of, yeah, the procedural
Yeah.
details with the detectives. It's kind of similar. But I would put this one in the freezer for the gore. Like it's not the most intense book that I've ever read, but I wouldn't just hand this to somebody without a heads up. And there's also some pretty upsetting assault scenes and things like that. So yeah, I would put this in the freezer. And that's Frankenstein, Prodigal Son, Book One by Dean Koontz and Kevin J. Anderson.
That sounds bananas. And I don't
Yeah.
know why every time you said Kevin J. Anderson, I kept expecting you to say Kevin James. And I'm like,
God, can you
I
imagine?
know. I
Um,
could actually.
Paul Blart rolling in.
Okay, so my next pick was one I actually swapped out, where I was like, "Oh, this will be an honorable
Ooh.
mention." And then when I read it, I'm like, "No, this is the book I want to talk about." And originally it
Mm.
was going to be an honorable mention because I think it's a little more on the thriller side. I don't think people would classify this as a horror novel, but
Mhm.
I thought it just had a lot to say that was interesting. And that's Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. It's a dual timeline story. So the first timeline is in 1978, where we are at a renowned treatment center where Dr. Hildreth is acclaimed for her compassionate care for the mentally ill. But we also see that, she has grandkids, and to them, she's gran and she's like very fun with her grandkids, Eric and Vi. And one day she brings home just like another child
Ooh.
who's just like doesn't speak and just like very skittish. And she's
Oh
just like,
my.
be friends.
Everything's fine. Everything's cool here.
And like as kids, they're like, cool, another friend.
Mhm.
And so as you're going through the story in that timeline, it's like, yeah, like they take her in and they make her part of their like monster club. Like Vi is really
Hmm.
into monsters and like keeping a record and like categorizing them because like monsters are everywhere and you just got to keep your eyes open.
Ooh.
And then modern timeline, 2019, we are following Lizzie Shelley, um, which like she's very upfront. She's like, yes, this is a name I gave myself. This is not.
Ah, okay.
Host of the popular podcast Monsters Among Us. And we follow her as she travels to Vermont, where a young girl has been abducted. There's a monster sighting, and she is determined to hunt it down because she knows better than anyone that monsters are real. And one of them is her own sister.
Oh my god. This sounds so good. I love Jennifer McMahon, but I haven't read this one.
It's going to be a weird sentence. I did get excited when you mentioned eugenics earlier.
I saw you perk
I'm
up in
like,
the thing. I'm like, "Oh, she's got something to say."
well, this book is really interested in, as you can tell from the synopsis, and like monstrosity and
Mhm.
what is it that makes a monster, and is it really the thing that we are told is the
Mhm.
monster, and really getting into the dark side of science and eugenics and like, yeah, what would this science be used for
Mhm. Yes.
if it was there. And I do love like podcast host
Yes.
protagonist.
You're like, "Ah, representation."
Finally,
Yeah.
they killed us off in Halloween 2018, but we're
Right.
still staying strong.
Well, all representation can't be, like, positive and rosy, it won't be full.
I'm just glad it didn't fall into the kill your podcasters trope.
Right, I know. We got a little bit of a break, we got a
Yeah.
breath of fresh air.
Oh, but this was just, I mean, Jennifer McMahon is good at what she does because I think,
Mhm.
I don't know if most of the books I've read by her are dual timeline, but that is a thing to juggle when you are writing, where
Yeah.
you have to like give enough information at like both times and propel both stories forward and like reveal things and keep the tension somehow the whole
Yeah.
time. And she
Mhm.
does it so well. Like this was a 5-star
Mhm.
book for me,
Ugh.
which I wasn't expecting. I was kind of thinking like, this will be like a 3-star book that I'll like kind of mention.
Right? Yeah,
And
yeah,
I was
no,
like,
and
oh
then
no,
it
I
lingered.
loved this.
Oh, I can't wait to pick it up now, oh my god.
So that is Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon.
I just want to take a quick break to remind everyone like we've got these themes that keep coming back. Like even in my Dean Koontz, there's a big strong theme of autonomy there where, Victor is trying to create these super soldiers that are easily controlled. And also he has this domination thing where with women, he fully controls the women. So like he's taking autonomy away, he's taking that power. And you just mentioned, like using where's this kind of technology going, like these are the technology, the autonomy, like all of this is coming together. I just want to acknowledge that I love that this is
Yeah.
cohesively coming together. So my next pick is Destroyer by Victor Laval, which is a graphic novel slash comic book, and I think a lot of people know about this. It focuses again on the tech and medical industries, advanced technology, and kind of the desperate acts of a grieving mother. So this graphic novel focuses on a brilliant technological brain, this woman who is just like incredible at what she does. And she has a son, and she is Black, her son is Black, and he is killed by police. And that grief and her personal knowledge kind of come together, and she decides to, bring her son back. And there's like a whole thing. It's short. You can read this in an afternoon. I don't want to like say the whole thing, the whole plot, but there is a lot about, it's a revenge story. It focuses on grief and justice. It talks a lot about, social justice and the pain of this country and things that we have been talking about as a country pretty deeply for several years now. And it was also, it's got fun science fiction elements, and it is gory and violent. And if you like Frankenstein, if you like Victor Laval, like definitely pick this up. I read it on the Hoopla app through my public library, so you could probably get it through Hoopla. And this was kind of more of a fridge read for the violence and the upsetting real world horrors. It wasn't too bad. Like, I would give this to a teenager probably, but yeah, that's Destroyer by Victor Laval.
Oh, this has been on my TBR list, and I've seen it on Hoopla as I've been like looking
Mm-hmm.
for like graphic novels. I'm like, I do need to read that. Also, like, I've loved everything by Victor Laval that
Yes.
I've ever read. Like, I've
Yeah.
never read a book by him that's
Mm-hmm.
even been like okay. Like, they've all
Right.
been great.
Out of the park. Yeah, he is an auto buy for me.
Yeah. Ugh, when you mentioned the mother losing her son reminded me of Monstrilio, and I'm mad at myself for not even
Mm.
thinking of that.
Oh my
I
God.
know, it was right there. Someone out there is
Yes.
like screaming at me.
I
Like, how
know.
could you not?
And I do have that. I have it on my shelves. I haven't read it yet. But yeah, you're right. The grief, because that is very similar.
Yeah, it's like a mother and her son dies, and she is in so much grief. And she just heard a story of like a woman who was able to like bring her son back to life by like keeping a piece of him. So she cuts his chest open and like takes out, I believe, his it's a piece of his lung,
Ooh.
and kind of like nurses it, and it's alive, and it like grows and grows limbs and becomes
Ooh.
like a monster that
It's
was
like a sourdough starter. Sorry.
This is a book about grief, but it also has like its funny parts, so it's okay.
Okay, good. I have it on my shelves. I'm going to read it. The cover art is so stunning. I couldn't resist like just grabbing it immediately.
Sourdough starter, like bad version.
No disrespect, but first thing that popped in my head.
But my final pick is a book that came out this year. It's Ein Hollow by Tim McGregor. I really liked this as well. And I think it was interesting as a retelling because, like I said, when you're reading The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, you're kind of like, okay, yeah. And then, like, when she does this, like, this is what's happening in the book. And it kind of follows that. Whereas this takes a lot more of a Voyage of the Demeter approach, where it's like this is a thing that happens in the book that we just like don't hear a lot about, and we are like
Mm.
expanding that
Mhm.
section of the story and kind of like creating a narrative. Okay, so this takes place in the Orkney Islands, 1797, and you're following a woman named Agnes Tulloch who has a very crappy life. And I think that's important because I struggle with
Mhm.
historical fiction a lot of the time. And I think what makes it work for me, and that I've noticed that Tim McGregor does really well, is just connecting to characters right away, that you can
Yeah.
just you see them and you connect with them. Um, so yeah, she lives in this like windswept, desolate island with
Ugh.
like nobody there. She
Ooh.
has a lot of children, like a much older husband who is they have not a great marriage. He's growing increasingly distant. Like she just does not have
Mm.
a lot to look forward to in her life.
Yeah. Talk about not having autonomy or the
Yeah.
ability of choice at all.
Oh, absolutely. And that is explored in this book, as you can imagine. But
Mhm.
all of a sudden, a windswept stranger
Oh.
comes into this island.
I wonder if he was as hot as the Kenneth Branagh version. Sorry.
I think when your island has like 10 people, maybe your
Mm.
standards are not like
Oh, yeah. You're like, "A human?"
a new person.
Mhm.
But her husband is like, "Oh, by the way, like you now work for him. Like you have to go clean his house
Oh,
to make us
wow.
money. FYI, get to it,
Yikes.
woman."
Oh my god. Ugh.
She does. She's like his new housekeeper. She brings him food, but they end up talking and forming a bit of a relationship. This stranger being named Victor
Oh my
Frankenstein.
god.
And I don't want to say like too much because it is a novella and I don't know like
Mhm.
how much I can say that's not going to like ruin where it goes.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's, you gave the hook.
Yeah.
I just got this out from the library. It's sitting by my bed, and it's very close to next up on my TBR, so I am very excited to get to it.
It's good. And it's funny talking about like stories that we're familiar with and finding ways of making them fresh. But even with this, like when you have familiarity of what the story is, sometimes like elements get introduced that just
Mm.
fill you with dread because you're like, oh no, is that going to be, that
Oh,
can't
yeah.
possibly be. But that's no. And
Oof.
you like that's a different form of dread. It's
Yes,
just
that's
like
true.
you're
Yeah.
like, because of the familiarity I have with this, I'm connecting
Yes.
these dots and my heart is filled with dread.
Yeah, it's exploiting,
Yeah.
the knowledge that people already have going into the story to, yeah, kind of suggest things that are gonna put you on edge, that are
Mhm.
gonna, like, really add that another layer to the suspense.
So this was a fridge book for me, I think,
Ooh.
because of that. And I just really connected with it. I really liked it.
Good, I cannot wait to get to it.
So that is Ein Hollow by Tim McGregor.
My last pick, was also kind of like a quick last minute swap out, mostly because I really enjoyed reading this book. Like all of my picks, the one thing that they have in common really is that like I had a good time reading them, regardless of other Dean Koontzy things. Um, but it is Our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill, which came out last year, and this is a historical fiction, takes place in the 1850s in England, and it follows Mary, the great niece of Victor Frankenstein. And she has kind of grown up with all of this mystery around her ancestors and her relatives. She is basically an orphan living with her grandmother, who's not very nice. And she, from an early age, latches on to science and in particular kind of geology and the study of fossils as well. She's very enamored with fossils. But this is the 1850s and the scientific community was not open to women, and especially not to the idea of fostering girls
Hmm.
in this knowledge and in this academic pursuit. But it is also a time when the scientific community is like bursting with new ideas and people are just like throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. Like there's a lot going on and there's a lot to be excited about. So Mary grows up to be a very scientifically minded woman and she really wants to be involved. The other thing about Mary, though, is that she is queer and she, as a girl, has like a very formative negative experience with this identity that follows her throughout her life. And so, in one way, she is a pioneering woman who wants to break boundaries, and in the other way, she just wants to conform. So, she marries a man, she tries to have kind of a traditional relationship. They get pregnant, and there's a whole other thing about grief in this book. I'm also trying not to give too much away. I feel like I'm giving a lot away about my picks. But her life just continues to say, listen, you know who you are. You're trying to run away from who you are. That's not going to happen. And it just continues to confront her with her true self. So that's a lot of like this book is following her on multiple journeys. And that's one of those journeys. And they're all kind of like connected. But her husband is a geologist. He's also a bit of a, I don't know, he's not very responsible. He's got his weaknesses and they struggle in multiple ways. But one day she stumbles upon her ancestor Victor Frankenstein's papers, or papers pertaining to him. Like there are notes. I believe it's the notes of the captain on the ship. She basically finds those notes that are the basis of Mary Shelley's book. Like, that's how the book is written. So she takes these notes and she's like, oh, this is how we can break through in the scientific community. Everybody is interested in these fossils of these enormous reptiles like dinosaurs. And this is like when they're starting to really like dig into dinosaurs, like literally, but also academically. And there's so little known about them. So the discourse is just wild about dinosaurs. So she's like, well, we can settle this once and for all. We can Jurassic Park this. And so this book is basically Jurassic Park meets Frankenstein meets his historical fiction. Like,
I
her and her
see the
husband.
parallels. I think it's
Right?
a
Oh,
perfect match.
absolutely. It makes total sense. The logic is absolutely there. And so they decide to try to bring back a dinosaur, basically. There's more to it than that. And there's, of course, we've got villains, we've got all kinds of intrigue, we've got all sorts of like drama and trauma and things to work through. But it was very exciting, this book. It was very, very like energetic. Like, I had a great time listening to this book. I listened to the audiobook. And it, it's a lot about like her queer identity. It's about sexism, misogyny, and it was just really heartfelt, but also very thrilling. Like, it was just a well-crafted book. I had a really good time reading this. It's obviously room temperature. There's not really any like violence. There's like heightened suspense and thrills, and there's some like, you know, I don't know, the monster. It's not. I was gonna say, oh, maybe there's some like gross stuff with what they create, but not really. Actually, It's not too gross. So yeah, this is solidly room temperature. I think it would be a great book club book if you have
Mhm.
a book club. And I had a really good time with it, and the audiobook is good too. So that is Our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill.
I really like the cover for this.
It's pretty, right?
It's a very
Yeah.
pretty book.
Hmm.
I need to check it out. I know we both have a list of like honorable mentions because the genre is rife with Frankenstein
Oh yeah.
material.
Oh yeah.
Like I read the Junji Ito Frankenstein manga, which for the most part was just an essentially a straightforward retelling, but with
Mm-hmm.
like Junji Ito art, which I'm never gonna say
No,
no
yeah.
to.
Yeah. No.
So that was a fun way to like take in the story again.
Mm-hmm.
But I also thought of this one's a little more wacky. Uh, but All You Need Is Love and a Strong Electric Current by Mackenzie Kira,
Hell yeah.
which was mentioned like very early days of the podcast. She came on to talk about this novella, which essentially follows a woman who's an EMT, and her essentially like her kink is that um, she likes them to be cold,
Mm,
alive,
but
but
cold.
cold. Um, and so her boyfriend dies, and she keeps reviving him
Oh my god.
in this like horror sex romp
Woo.
police chase.
Oh my god.
So yeah, a little bonkers. But
Oh yeah.
using science for selfish purposes. Alex.
There we are. I mean, it's a theme. It keeps popping up.
So a few years ago I read the Eternal Frankenstein anthology. I actually think it was one of the first physical arcs I ever
Oh wow.
received, like in my early days of like making book videos on YouTube. And it was from Word Horde.
Hmm.
But I remember there was a lot of interesting stories in that I really liked. But obviously, they're all stories that are based on Frankenstein, as you can imagine.
Right. I feel like there are quite a few anthologies because I have two anthologies as well on my list here. So there's The Afterlife of Frankenstein, edited by David Sandner, which is an anthology. And this was recommended to me by horror author extraordinaire Michael Arnzen. So thanks, Mike, for that. This is really good if you want to explore the influence of Frankenstein even further back. So it's a collection of short stories and excerpts from other works that were published between 1818 and 1918. So this is like classic stuff from the first century of influence of the book. So that if you, are interested in that era of Frankenstein influence, and if you are slightly more academically inclined, I think this would be a good anthology to explore. And then the other anthology I had was In the Shadow of Frankenstein, edited by Stephen Jones. And this is more of a modern collection of short fiction inspired by Frankenstein. And this has authors like Ramsey Campbell and Lisa Morton. And there's a foreword by Neil Gaiman. So that's a fun, it's good. I enjoyed a lot of the stories in that. And then, okay, I've got more. And none of these are really like horror. So Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi. Probably saying his name wrong, but that is probably a little bit more horror leaning. It is gross. Like there's parts of it that are absolutely gross. These descriptions of like rotting body parts and also just the effects of war. That book is really interesting. It takes place during the Iraq War, I believe. Wow, I really should have reviewed this before I started talking about it, but it is modern era conflicts, and someone is basically taking the body parts of people who are killed in this conflict and creating one singular human out of them so that they can be honored and buried like tradition requires. But that's difficult in this environment when people are literally getting blown up and there's just pieces left. And there's so much wrapped up in this book. There is so much about family, there's so much about war, politics, corruption. It is more kind of like literary fiction leaning, but there is like some brutality in there. So that is an interesting one. It was up for a ton of awards. So probably a good book club pick. And then I also read Unwieldy Creatures by Addie Tsai. And this one is like more of a straight retelling of Frankenstein, but set in the modern era, although feels very surreal. Like this is an interesting tone this book has. And it focuses more on its Asian Americans with, there's biracial characters and they're queer as well. So when we think about these marginalized populations in America, like this book really touches on this, what it's like to be a queer biracial person in America. There is a lot about intimate partner abuse in this, domestic abuse. There is a lot about loss of autonomy, a lot. And this book focuses on reproductive technology. So there is a lot about IVF. There's a lot of reproductive abuse that happens in this book. This is a sad, kind
Interesting.
of a sad book. It ends very positively though. And it is also, I think what it really shares with Frankenstein is its strong focus on philosophy. There is a whole section of it devoted to gender philosophy and the monster talking about gender and how the monster kind of got to its gender identity. And the characters are also constantly thinking about their gender identity and how that plays into where they belong in the world. So if you are interested in gender studies, this is a great book to pick up. It also is a little slower, much like the original Frankenstein, because it is so philosophically heavy, but it has a lot to say in it. So I appreciated it a lot. That's Unwieldy Creatures. And then the last one that I explored was Frankenstein by Jeanette Winterson. And this also has a lot to do with gender identity, specifically trans identity and sexuality and the tech industry. So,
Oh,
yeah, a lot of what I read had to do with gender identity and technology together, and the medical industry. It's just, this is why Frankenstein is eternal. But Jeanette Winterson is like a classic author of our time, and she writes a lot about sexual orientation and gender identity. And so this book is a classic Jeanette Winterson. So it's straight literary fiction. So if you enjoy her work, then definitely check out Frankenstein. Yeah, but those are the other ones that I explored for this episode.
which was a lot, which makes sense when you
Yeah.
look at the stack of library books that you
I
were
know.
reading for this.
Oh, yeah. I go to my public library and I'm like, I'm here for my holds. And they're like, this is all Frankenstein. Like, they're just like, what project are you working on? Like, they know me now. They're like, you're doing a project, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, I am.
Like, no, I just get really weird niche obsessions.
Well, that's true too, to be fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's true for a lot of us.
It is.
Well, do you have any chilling obsessions?
I kind of struggled with this because I haven't been watching a ton of stuff, and I'm like, well, it's Lisa Frankenstein, but we already talked about that.
Yeah.
I do want to call out though that I really enjoyed A Murder at the End of the World, the TV show. I think it's on Hulu. I really liked that. That is a thriller. It's a murder mystery. It's not horror, but I don't know. I loved it. I'm obsessed with it. I'd probably watch it again. And then I have read some banger books back to back to back. I've had a really good reading moment. So I just want to call them out. And a lot of these, I think your listeners have already know. They all already know about these. Some of these are nominated for Stokers this year. But I just want to reinforce how
Okay.
much fun I had, like how good they are. So The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Keist, that just came out.
Seconding.
Oh, so good. Cried so much reading that book. Really hit several nerves. I really appreciated that one. So thank you, Gwendolyn, for that book. And then Black River Orchard by Chuck Wendig. That book was so much fun. It hit so many tropes that I love, like small town weirdness happening, the ragtag crew like gathering the troops to try to fight this. I mean, if people follow me on Instagram or TikTok, I just did a whole thing about how I'm obsessed with fighting supernatural evil. So
Yeah, it was a video about like what niche tropes do you like? And they were all just like when this happens and they fight a supernatural evil, and then this happens and they also fight a supernatural evil.
I just love it when people have to fight the supernatural evil. And Black River Orchard was like the gathering of the troops to fight the supernatural evil.
Nice.
I loved it. Oh, and here's another one. So Spite House by Johnny Compton. You go into a house and you have to fight a supernatural evil. That book was so sweet and touching,
Yeah.
and spooky.
Yeah.
I
I'm
really like
excited
that.
for his new one.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm gonna read whatever he puts out now. Like all of these authors that I'm
Also,
naming.
we met him and he is so nice.
He is a sweetheart. Yeah. I mean, all of these people,
Yeah,
the
that's
horror
true.
world
Everyone I've
is
met, that's a horror. Everyone
right.
I've met
It's
is
overflowing with such kind people with such generosity of spirit. I just like adore the horror world so much for that. But yeah, Spite House, wonderful. And then White Horse by Erica T. Worth. Really enjoyed that one. That's again, we got a supernatural evil,
yeah.
but not quite. It's like ambiguous. Like, is it evil? Is it actually guiding me to what I need to actually be
Hmm.
fighting? That kind of thing. But it's a heavy supernatural leaning sort of book, and I loved the characters in that book. I just felt like her character work was really good. They were very real, they were very flawed, but still lovable, still, someone you want to spend a lot of time with in the book. So I really enjoyed White Horse. So these books, I'm just happy to have them. I feel like I am really hitting it out of the park with my picks of what I'm reading, and I can't wait for my next hopefully amazing read. Well, honestly, so another confession for everyone. I haven't read Stephen Graham Jones' Indian Lake trilogy yet. I was waiting for all of them to be published
Okay.
before I started, and now I have the last one. So I am going to be picking that up next. So I won't be disappointed. So I just know I won't. So I'll have 3 more amazing books to look forward to.
I am very excited for you to check out the Indian Lake trilogy.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm going to be texting you throughout.
I loved them, and it's so like when I was reading it, obviously like like Jay Daniels' thing is that she like loves horror movies.
Mhm.
And so the first one is set, I want to say like 2016 or 2017. And then this last one is set more modern day. So I just remember like listening and being like, I'm glad I live in a world where Jay Daniels has seen bodies, bodies, bodies.
Yes! Oh, yes. Yes. That's good for her. Yeah.
I was
I
like,
love bodies,
yes.
bodies,
I'm like,
bodies.
I'm so glad you were able to see it, fictional character.
Right. And it's so funny because I kind of like turned my mom onto Stephen Graham Jones, and now she's just as
Mhm.
ravenous about all of his work as the rest of us are. And she was reading them